Hey everyone, boom, I am live. Let me adjust the comments window. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I have been following the earthquake news in New Zealand. And so that, let me just drag this out a little bit and try to make this fit nice. How about if I bring that down this tie so a little bit lower? I'd actually fix up this window configuration. There's a little bit there. And let's into 45 so we can pull this down a little bit. Boom, down to there. And that is good. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's do that again. Hopefully that will work. And I will... Oh geez, it's going to collapse. Okay, well that worked. So, good to see you all. What I will be doing is, it's Jake Knowlton talking about pineapple on pizza. Is it the Superman moon tonight? Is that it? That actually literally might have something to do with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with this little New Zealand. Let me explain the best of what I can figure out is what's happening in New Zealand right now as of 1 hour ago. So at 2 a.m. local time, actually I think it was like 9 p.m. here, so that's, yeah, I understand it's like 2 a.m. or a little bit before 2 a.m. Local time. And another big earthquake happened. At the most intense shaking, it was the same as the earthquake in February 2011, 1 month before the big earthquake in Japan actually. Yeah, that kind of sucked. They had another quake of the same shake intensity, but actually bigger magnitude. It was a 7.8 this time, whereas it was like a 6.1 before. The thing was, the quake in 2011 was a direct hit on the city of Christchurch, the second biggest city in New Zealand. The epicenter was in the city. It was very local. Only half the city wasn't affected by it, and half the city was wiped out. And most of my relatives lived in the bad half of the city, and they lost their houses. Let me copy a link to that, and let me just tweet out that I am starting the live. Log in. So so that was a very bad but very local quake. This was a much bigger quake that happened. That was centered on a small town in the northeast of the South Island. I'll give you a little bit of a tour just to explain what I understand has happened and what is continuing to happen at the moment. It's actually been felt over a kind of incredible area now. It's a much big. It's been felt over a broader area, and it's been very big in Christchurch again. I am live on Tokyo Tonight, talking the NZ quake election. UYT terminations and more. Boom. Boom. It's been a pretty big week, hasn't it? The tsunami indeed, it sounds like, arrived in Kaikoura probably just about an hour ago now. And was about 2 meters. The problem is it's the middle of the night in New Zealand, and really there's not much information. So let me give you a bit of an orientation. This is New Zealand. This is the country that I come from. It is about the same size as Japan. Japan's a little bit bigger, but basically from the very top, at the top up there, all the way down to the bottom there, it's about the same as from Kyushu to the top of Hokkaido. So it's basically New Zealand is almost the same size and shape as Japan. It's also the same size. I get a little bit smaller than California and a little bit smaller than the Great Britain, or the main island of Great Britain. But the sizes kind of compute. So basically, this is a horrible map there we go. Now you can see Christchurch, Wellington and Auckland. I'm mostly from Auckland, although I've also lived in the middle of the North Island, in between Palmerston North and Rotorua, there near the Great Big Lake. I've also lived in Wellington. Wellington is famous for having lots of earthquakes. Christchurch is where my dad is from. My dad's actually born in Fiji, but his family are from Christchurch, and he went back to Christchurch after when he was a kid, basically, and he grew up there. Christchurch is this city here. This is where my dad is from. All my relatives in New Zealand pretty much that are left. Although I do have a lot of, now that I think of it, I have cousins in Wellington. But my grandma, my uncle, they all live here in Christchurch. The quake which happened a few years ago happened basically where those hills are and where the sea is. It's sort of that whole eastern half of the city. Had a pretty tough run with that quake a few years ago and got pretty much wiped out. The thing with Christchurch is it's on a plain. The CBD, the center of the town there, the city there, is actually below sea level. And these hills have a lot of landslides and so on. They're pretty bad with quakes. So the quake this time, the last one was a direct hit. What's happened tonight is there have been in the first hour there were more than 30 significant quakes. But the quake took place in this little town up the coast here called Kaikoura. So that's about, I understand it's about 200 kilometers. It's about 2 to 3 hours drive away from Christchurch. It's a beautiful place. It's got the best seafood in New Zealand, all the whale watching, famous for crayfish. It's one of those places that for me is a must go to in New Zealand. It's a small town. It's pretty isolated. As you can see, it's sort of surrounded by mountains. But it is basically just, it's got a unique kind of geology to it, that it's where there's all these seals, these whales, crayfish. You just go there to eat like fish and chip, like seafood when you're there. It's a beautiful town. And they got it worse. The epicenter was located in Culverden, Cheviot, sort of around this area. You can see these towns here. In fact, I heard it was Hamner Springs. You can see Hamner Springs there as well. It's a little bit hard to make out, but it's in the middle of those mountains there. I used to go there with my grandma to Hot Springs when I was a kid. So that was a center, but the thing is that quake was felt everywhere from Wellington to Christchurch, which is basically, from a Japan perspective, that's like everywhere from like Hiroshima to Tokyo, pretty much, like in terms of the area felt. Sort of centered on, you can imagine something centered on Kyoto, but felt, as far away as Tokyo and Hiroshima. So it's a pretty broad area. And the thing is, the aftershocks that happened from this quake, they happened in Christchurch, but there were also some very strong shocks that happened sort of up towards Wellington, and in the North Island, all the way up to Hamilton. Now, I don't even know how far is this, like 800 kilometers away? I'm just trying to think. That's like, that is a long, long, long way away. There have actually been aftershocks centered near Hamilton, and actually up in the Bay of Plenty, up in the sort of bay on the east coast up here. The earthquake, it triggered a tsunami that happened about 30-40 minutes after the quake, a 2-meter tsunami, which the whole east coast of the North Island is under a tsunami warning. But what's really messing with things at the moment is that around Wellington, you've got this town Paraparaungu. You see it on the top there, on the west coast there. All the ocean is drained out over there. It's on the west coast. It's on the opposite side from where the quake was. So they're having some problems. Plus Lower Hutt. You see Lower Hutt at the moment is also being evacuated. Wellington, by the way, was actually created by a massive earthquake about 100 years ago, which actually just drained a bay full of water. And the entire central business district was built on the land that popped up from the bottom of the ocean as a result of this massive earthquake that happened 100 years ago. So it was actually formed in tsunamis and earthquakes. And they know that the city is basically toast at some point. I lived there as a kid. It's a lovely city. They're a little bit more used to it, but they do have tall buildings there. That is the capital of New Zealand. Apparently a lot of the tall buildings, the upper buildings, have suffered a lot of damage. I've seen pictures from the central business district of Wellington. There's a lot of the glass towers, all the glass buildings, all the glass is sort of broken and fallen. And bear in mind again, this is how far away from Kaikoura. This is like, in fact there was the scale there for a minute. It's probably nearly 300 kilometers away from Kaikoura. Maybe less than that actually, maybe 200. But it's a good distance away, but quakes have basically been going all the way up, and you can almost see the line that all the fault lines happen. We've got these Alps, and it's almost a symmetrical straight line. It goes on this line through the South Island, through the central North Island. When you get to the North Island, it gets really interesting because in the central North Island you actually have volcanoes as well as earthquakes. I lived in a town, I'll show you where I used to live. Cooney. I used to live in a little town there called Waihuru, right in the middle of the map there. It's right beside 3 volcanoes. There's another one out here which looks exactly like Mount Fuji. It's where they filmed Last Samurai because it looks exactly the same. So when you live in Waihuru, you actually have the joy of being on the most active fault line in New Zealand as well as in front of its most active volcano. only the army would build a town there. Plus it's like 1,500 meters elevation, so you get all the shitty weather from being at higher elevation. But basically all this area has been having aftershocks up and down the entire country, so it's been kind of crazy. And it's all at 3 o'clock in the morning, so basically no one's awake, there's no video, no one knows what's going on, other than that pretty much most of this area around Kaikoura, sort of in between Christchurch and the top of the South Island, is out of power at the moment. And phone lines are down everywhere. There's been a lot of landslides and so on, and I've been listening to Radio New Zealand streaming live about this. But you know, they're having trouble. They're driving people out, and people are talking on their phones trying to figure out just what's going on, but we're not really going to know until morning. I debated with my father earlier tonight about whether we call and wake up my grandma. She is actually living in a service department attached to a nursing home, so if there was going to be an evacuation, she's right in the middle of Christchurch. If they were going to, the good thing about that is that if evacuation is really necessary from there, it is quite a long way from the ocean in the central city, but at the same time it is below sea level. So even like a 1 meter tsunami, if it's coming over the wave breaks, it's still not a good deal. But if there was any need for anything like that, there are tsunami warnings along Brighton, which is the coastline there, but nothing in the city. And if there was, when my grandma is, there are people looking after her. So we decided not to wake her up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and we are going to get in touch in the morning and check that everything is okay. Yeah, you know, and indeed, Robert, the good news is that New Zealand is sparsely populated, and these are not large towns, although Kaikoura, you know, Kaikoura, Blenheim, Picton apparently suffered a lot of damage there. You know, they're not small towns, you know, you're talking 20, 30, 40,000 people. But the thing is, we don't know. You know, all these towns are pretty much cut off at the moment, so I guess we're going to find out. And that's it, they're kind of spread out, so it's not like when you have densely populated, you don't have that sort of a risk, but at the same time, it makes it very easy to lose contact with these towns. The other thing is that, you know, in Japan, when you have an earthquake, everyone goes straight onto Twitter. You can immediately get these wonderful shake maps, which basically, you know, map out the intensity of shake, you know, over an area. So, and everyone who lives in Japan is so accustomed to reading these shake maps. You know exactly how bad the shake is by just looking at this map right away. So pretty much within 2 or 3, you know, within 2 minutes of a quake, any quake anywhere in Japan, you've got a perfect map showing exactly, you know, like to the street address, how bad the shake actually was in different places. New Zealand, we have as many earthquakes as Japan, but whenever they have a quake, it's all the reporting is, you know, someone's cat fell off a table, or someone, you know, the refrigerator door opened, or, you know, something like that. You don't really get very good information on the degree of shaking. They do use the Mercalli scale in New Zealand, and there was a Mercalli scale 8, which is basically the equivalent of a Shindo lower 5, which is actually less than what Tokyo had during the Great Japanese Earthquake. We had an upper 5, which is a Mercalli 9. But that said, these are towns which aren't built for, you know, being earthquake proof, and, you know, a Mercalli 8 killed 138 people in Christchurch. And today in Kaikoura, there was another Mercalli 8 plus a tsunami, and plus, what's more alarming is the tsunami, or in Lower Hutt, and apparently in Lyle, in Lower Hutt, and in Paparam, as New Zealanders who badly pronounce Maori place names would call it. The ocean's draining out there. I also heard that there's actually on the east coast as well, there were some towns out here. Where was it? It was Te Awa. Yeah, there are towns out here on the east coast anyway which have been called for evacuating. In fact, that also makes me think they are, if they're evacuating all the way up to Hawke's Bay, you know, Anna Fifield is also from Napier, I think. Napier Hastings, one of those two. And it looks like they'll be in trouble out there as well. So, you know, and 3 o'clock in the morning, so hopefully, the good news is it's low tide. A tsunami just adds, you know, like a couple of meters of extra sea level, and that's the problem. If you're on a high tide, and even like with a 1 or 2 meter tsunami, it can take a normal tide into like a super tide, and that can cause flooding. And the intensity, of course, is what is what causes all the problems. So these things are known in New Zealand. They just don't cause as much fuss, because, you know, most of the quakes happen in New Zealand in places where they're you know, just sheep falling over. But this one is really, not only is it a big quake to begin with, but the aftershocks have just happened up and down the country. As far north as, I mean, this is an area basically between like Fukuoka and Tokyo, pretty much distance-wise. Hamilton to Christchurch. So it's been pretty remarkable. And Kenji. Well, New Zealand has almost as many as Japan. Japan is kind of special. Where I used to live in that central North Island town, we had the most quakes of anywhere in New Zealand. But again, you just look at the shape of the country, you can see the geology. It's the same. It's like Honshu. You've got all those Alps down the middle, great, rock climbing and all that sort of stuff. But it's because we get freaking earthquakes all the time. The whole North Island, we've got onsen, we've got mud pools, geysers, or we've got basically an extended route. That town Rotorua is like the Yellowstone National Park. It's all thermal, geothermal. Actually, in the central North Island, we even have a lot of geothermal power with like Iceland. But that's volcanoes combined with earthquakes. So it's been a rough night. It's great that I can sit here in Japan and track what information is available in New Zealand, but at the same time, we're not really going to know till sun comes up, because a lot of these towns are out of contact, either because people are asleep, hopefully, but also there have been a lot of landslides that have cut power lines and phone lines, so we just don't know. So that is a little bit about my country. I was not planning to talk about this, obviously. But half of Osaka. Yeah, I always like to say New Zealand's the same population as Yokohama. So imagine New Zealand is the same size as Japan. Imagine Japan like superimposed on that being the same size. In fact, here is the same zoom level. So let's go up to Japan, and there's Japan, and that's on the same zoom. So it's about the same size as New Zealand. It's pretty comparable, a little bit smaller. But yes, we our entire population is the same as Yokohama. So we're a bit spread out. Anyway, that's what's going on. I guess I'm going to keep following that, and we'll find out more in the morning. Hopefully everything is okay. And if you are in New Zealand, don't watch this. Watch the civil defence information and stay safe, please. So yes, that is the first topic. Pardon me. So what else has been going on this week? Let me get into my Twitter feed. As you can see, I'm feeling better, but I'm still quite croaky, so I probably will not talk for too long tonight because I don't want to mess up my throat again. But let's go into what the topics are. Kim, is New Zealand the last country to be discovered? Well, for a start, that's kind of ethnically centric. New Zealand was discovered by the Maori in the roughly about 1200 AD, but there are thoughts that there were people called Moriori who were in New Zealand maybe 600 or 700 years before the Polynesians came. I think Easter Island was the last place on Earth to be inhabited. I think Antarctica is same size. Just 3 or 4 million people, where Japan has 120 million people crammed into the same space. I think Antarctica was the last continent to be landed on in terms of the last country. Maybe Easter Island was the last to be colonized by people, the same people that came to New Zealand, by the way, the Polynesians. It's not known where they went out from, but they went out from somewhere around the Cook Islands up to Tahiti, Hawaii, Easter Island, and also out towards Samoa, New Zealand, Cook Islands. So yeah, we're definitely at the far end of the world in terms of anthropology. But yes, wasn't that Australia discovered last? Well, no, Australia was discovered about 100,000 years ago. In fact, it might have been discovered millions of years ago. So no, Australia I don't think was discovered last. But there we go. Well, I don't know. See, the thing is, Abel Tasman, in terms of European discovery, in terms of the whole world, that non-Europeans don't matter. New Zealand was discovered, I think, before Australia. Actually, I think that is true. But yes. Anyway, by the way, hey, bye, good to see you, man. If you have any questions about New Zealand, I'm quite happy to take them and answer them, such as a New Zealander who left the country in 1995 is able to answer. But anyway, I guess I should talk about the election result first, because holy shit. I have to admit, I was watching it just like I would watch a sports match. I was kind of interested. I'm aware of how important it is. I'm aware it's more important than a sports match, but at the same time, It was like turning on the TV to watch New Zealand play Fiji. And I'm tuning in and I'm on Twitter commenting. I'm hoping literally that Fiji puts up a good game. I'm hoping that they push it to the wire, because I'm expecting to just go in and see Hillary Rodham Clinton comfortably, win, and to watch the vote results come in and see it be a fairly lopsided contest. And it proved to be a lot more interesting than what anyone was sort of expecting. And the expected result did not happen, obviously, right? And Trump won. What do I think about that? Well, one, I'm not American. Two, I am a white, middle-aged male. So, yes, that's right, Sergeant Bilko. So, I mean, granted, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a minority, I'm not an LGBT, I'm not a, which isn't to say that disqualifies me from feeling sympathy or empathy or concern for those people. I know a lot of people there are reacting like this is the end of the world. LGBT people. I was having people tweet at me that people are contemplating suicide and so on. To me, I'll say it. I'm very disappointed by the way that people are reacting. I remember when Obama was elected 8 years ago, and the southern, cousin fucking, inbred whatevers, they were reacting and freaking out that the world was coming to an end, that Obama was elected. And everyone, in the liberal states was kind of saying, well, suck it up, that's democracy, you win some, you lose some. And it's kind of funny, now that the tables are turned, people don't seem to want democracy anymore. And that is, and this is not just the hysterical, college students and stuff like that. This is actually like some fairly smart people. So Michael Kuchek on Twitter today said that the election result was kind of a, we're not committed to democracy to the point of a suicide pact. He wrote a blog advocating the dividing up of Japan, of America. Which I told him I thought was insane, and he tweeted back that, it's just kind of crazy. So no, here's the thing. You know what? I mean, I really hope that we all look back, and I'm saying, and when we look back on this, that I'm not apologizing for this in a couple of years. If it turns out that Trump really is Hitler, and we are really going to round up all the Muslims, and put all the LGBTs into gas chambers, and do whatever like some people are actually believing is going to happen, then my bad. But he's a he was not a normal guy. In fact, he seems to be kind of an exceptionally bad person to be president. But at the same time, he is the president, and I think this is the thing. You got to let him have a go now. And that's the thing. The reason you respect democracy at its very most basic reason is that sooner or later the tables are going to be turned, and you're going to want to treat people the way that you will want to be treated, right? The idea that people are going out and trying to reject the election result. There are plenty of ways that I think. I mean, I'll be surprised if Trump lasts 12 months. I think all the things that are out there that he could be prosecuted for or impeached for. I think it's going to be a nightmare like that. And I think given the way that the GOP has been treating Obama the last couple of years, shutting down Congress, that and what happened with the Clinton presidency, that the Democrats are going to go, ape shit crazy on trying to find any way possible to prosecute Trump, and that's going to be a major feature of this presidency. But a lot of it's just for revenge, right? The tone is constantly going down, and this is doing it as well. And I think that Democrats can't talk about secession, reject secession when they win, and talk about it when they lose. It's just kind of crazy stuff. Fortunately, I don't think it's a small minority of that. I think people are waiting and seeing, and again, you're seeing that Trump is, such as he is, he's already changed his mind on Obamacare after a conversation with Obama. And I'm expecting, and people are saying, well, look, see, now he's flip-flopping. Well, aren't you glad? I mean, like I say, I do think it's like, holy shit, has America lost its mind? I see people are complaining that the result is illegitimate because Hillary won the popular vote. And America people will lose while winning popular votes all the time because of your electoral system, which favours winner takes all, first past the post, gerrymandering system. We had the same system in New Zealand, and we changed it. They had similar systems in Japan, which they changed. They made them more proportional and more representative. Anyone can do it. Japan, America is not the perfect model of democracy. Americans are the first to acknowledge that. Change it. You don't like it, but sort of pretending that the system wasn't legitimate in the first place. It's been the same system the whole time. So, yeah. And Laura, I think, well, I'm worried. I mean, and I've seen all the comparisons. I thought myself, I said, geez, man, Italians can't, what was it? Americans can't make fun of Italians for Mussolini anymore, is what I first said. And everyone said, no, Berlusconi. And you know what? It's probably actually very, very similar, actually. Could he actually be that bad? The best reading, I'll put a few things that I found. My opinion on this is that this and Brexit and the other changes in the world have happened not because people have suddenly become more sexist or racist, or that there's been some sort of shift on that sort of thinking. Maybe there have been small shifts in that thinking, but fundamentally what has happened is that the people who have been disenfranchised, the people who have lost their jobs, the people who are in towns that have been cleaned out or whatever, or that have seen social, disruption and change, have been betrayed by the parties that they've always voted for. The British Labour Party, the American Democrats. I think they've taken their working class, supporters for granted. They've always, the Democrats the last few elections have been centre-right people. They've been people who have kind of ignored and taken for granted their base, and they've gone, and appealed as much as possible towards middle class and sort of wavering, swing voting Republicans. And, along the way, they've been signing up free trade agreements, which, rightly or wrongly, a lot of people who have lost their jobs blame for exporting their jobs overseas. People who don't understand foreign policy or don't necessarily the world very well and are afraid of immigrants coming in, instead of telling them, explaining, instead of entertaining the concerns that, no, they're letting immigrants in, are we going to be safe? Their own people who they've always had represent them are telling them, you're a racist, you can't ask that question, you can't say that. This is what people say about Pauline Hanson supporters, this is what people said about Brexit supporters, this is what people said about Trump supporters. And you know what, when you've got your own person who you always go to who says, don't ask me that question because you even thinking that makes you racist, and someone else saying, you know what, maybe you're right, maybe we need to look at this, maybe we should be challenging the status quo and this sort of thing. And they'll say, well, that guy's listening to me. That guy is at least, going to address my concern. And they're not talking necessarily about, one hopes, about genocide. But the point is, they've just been ignored and frankly kind of patronized and put down. And this has been happening in all these places. And all of these people that made up the backbone of the left, they've had no one to vote for. And the normal right has never been good for that either. Of course, the wealthy sort of Republicans. But, now you've got the working class, who have always been kind of fringe. They've kind of taken over the evangelicals, the kind of, the young GOP. And it's a new thing. But Francis Fukuyama, Kenji Hosokawa posted a great link, which I shared on Facebook, which Francis Fukuyama, the guy who did the famous End of History essay at the end of the Cold War, suggesting that liberal democracy was likely to, there'd be no more big ideological confrontations like between communism and democracy or capitalism that we had in the 80s. And boldly proclaimed the end of history, which has been very influential in international diplomatic political thought. He put out a great article about this, and he pointed out that the trend that's happened in America is linked to the trend that's been happening in Australia, it's been happening in Britain, it's also been happening in Turkey and Russia, and he pointed out that in those countries as well. In Russia, he actually pointed out with Russia, apparently, I didn't know this, Putin is not popular, he's not well liked. In fact, he's held in disdain in the cities by the elites, by the people in Leningrad, the people in, St. Petersburg, I should say, Moscow, those sort of places. He actually, the urban centers, but Russia is so big and so not urban, and it's basically the same sort of demographics of people in Russia who are the backbone that give him his 86% approval ratings. Erdogan, the Turkish president, same story apparently. It's the elites, the the academics, the intellectuals, the people who live in the cities, the well-to-do. They can't stand him. But the whole country, when the economy goes into the crapper, the whole country isn't those people, and it's those people are the ones who are backing them. And you know what, with the sort of appeal that someone like Putin has, for example, Hillary was ignoring this. Hillary's supposed to always be the champion of the workers. The stunt, it was kind of a stunt, but when Trump stood in front of a Ford factory and said that if you move your manufacturing from here to Mexico and you take these people's jobs away, I will impose a 350% tariff, or 35% tariff on your cars. Don't do it. And of course, all the union workers at that plant were cheering him. Hillary didn't do anything like that. And maybe again, he was blowing bullshit. But he was going around actually, the New Balance thing that he said that he would penalize people importing shoes. New Balance make their shoes in America. He said that he's promised that he's going to block these imports. He's going to block the joining these free trade agreements to protect US jobs. Now, I think for lots of reasons I personally disagree with that. I want free trade and more engagement. But I totally understand that if you're someone in a factory whose job is being moved to a lower cost location in a different country and you're made unemployment and you can't find a new job, it's totally understandable, one, that you would vote for the person who's voting to protect you. And it's always been the way that it's been the left-wing parties, it's been the Democrats that would protect the workers. But the Democrats are the ones who have been enabling, all these free trade deals, which I agree with. But again, the people, the backbone of that party, they've lost their voice, and they're finding it with this kind of new alt-right. I don't think they're necessarily, racism and sexism and misogyny and, is kind of a part of the backlash. And this is where I think the way that I saw it was an alt-right Bolshevik revolution. They would have come in and kill the intellect, get rid of the intellectuals and kind of smash the institution and break it apart. This is what happened in every revolution. This is what happened, in Russia. It certainly happened in Russia when the Bolsheviks came in and cleaned out the aristocracy. It happened in Thailand, and it's gone back and forth now between the red shirts, the yellow shirts, who are the intellectuals and the urbans, and the rich people, the oligarchs, and the reds, who are the rural, the disgruntled sort of rural people. The Cultural Revolution, it was young people, coming in and basically, running riot, extremely destructive stuff. But it was people who basically felt disenfranchised, and they suddenly got a grip, where they felt like they were in power, and they went nuts. It's what happened in Germany before World War II. It happened in lots of places, and the idea, maybe that is what we are witnessing. But I think it's more dangerous if you don't diffuse it, if you sort of reject it and fight against it. Maybe you should fight against it. Maybe you should reject it. And this is what some debates are happening around. But to me, I think simply calling them racist and misogynist and not even engaging in discussion with them, and the fact that so many of these protests have rejected even the concept of democracy, like, you can't have democracy if the other side wins and they're just so morally wrong. If you think that these are brown shirts, these are Hitler, I guess that's a legitimate point. But for me, where did it get to be so extreme that people would actually reject the basics of democracy, that you won't even listen or engage with people anymore? And again, I've shared some things which reflect my sort of view on this. I think the problem, at the end of the day, here's what it comes down to. People voted in Trump knowing exactly how bad and awful a person Trump is, right? That was completely out in the open. You can't really be angry at Trump for winning an election. You can't say that he hid his character, or that that anyone was deceived by it. He is a very flawed human being, but everyone knows him very well, and everyone knew what they were voting for, and he won. So do you get angry at him for winning, being who he is, or do you get angry at the Democrats for frankly screwing it up, for choosing the wrong candidate? For taking for granted that Hillary was going to win, railroading the Democrat nomination process, taking their own voters for granted, and letting them walk away to vote for the Republicans. This is the same in Japan. The parallel in Japan is that I, like everyone else, supported the Democrats in Japan just because, get rid of the LDP and get some fresh blood in. And what happened was, after a 1 year period of genuine reform, basically they got scared, and they turned around and they sort of undid all of their promises in order to try to sell out, to make friends with the bureaucracy and the sort of big business, and basically they tried to become more LDP than the LDP. And everyone is still, here's the thing, the Democrats, no one loves the LDP at all, but the Democrats' polling levels are so low now in Japan And it's because with the LDP, at least you know what you're voting for, whereas with the Democrats, they actually betrayed, and they haven't shown any guilt or any sort of internal self-reflection that they think that was their fault that they lost, which again makes me, scared of forgiving them. And it's kind of, I think this is exactly what Americans are going to be facing with the Democrats, unless the Democrats can actually show any internal understanding. I mean, granted, maybe it's Comey's fault and they can blame him for it or whatever, but unless they actually reflect that they had the wrong candidate and they ran the campaign the wrong way, they're never going to they're never going to recover from this, actually. And in Japan, this is what we experience, and this is what's happening in Britain as well. They can't come to terms with their own failings, and there's no choice other than that at the moment. We're kind of like in Japan. I've kind of been joking that Abe, is so comparatively liberal compared to other right-wing leaders around the world. The world is going crazy right-wing. Abe, everyone said, was like the next Hitler. He's not that. He's like a vaccine. He's a little bit right-wing enough that it stops the crazy right-wing coming out. But the left in Japan is, collapsed, like it has everywhere else. And we've got a much better situation here, I think, that we have in most of the rest of the developed world. So, he is America. Isn't that a depressing but true statement? And good luck with that, guys. Although I'd love to, this is the thing, I love to say good luck with that. It's your problem, but at the same time, why am I even got this on my ear? I'm not listening to the radio anymore. The problem is it affects us a lot. How is it going to affect Japan? I'll talk about that for a second. It's going to affect Japan that if he really makes good on his promise to basically walk out on its defense treaties with Japan and South Korea, China's going to just walk in and take a few of those islands, and maybe nothing will happen from that, but it's going to push to levels that have not been pushed before. The risk of armed conflict, of a war breaking out between maybe Japan, but certainly China and its neighbors. South Korea is, of course, freaking out totally because he's threatened to pull out of South Korea because of the cost to America of staying in South Korea. So Park is actually, basically they're throwing themselves at America, trying to do well with America at the moment. President Park would probably be quitting tonight, but she's actually scheduled the signing of an intelligence sharing treaty with Japan to pass through Parliament next week in Korea. This was the treaty that basically brought down the last president that was so unpopular. But the fact is, the Americans have always blamed the South Koreans and their hysterical hatred for Japan for shooting this treaty down before. That is the reason why they can't coordinate defense cooperation between Japan, Korea, and America. And they've blamed it squarely on the Koreans for being uncooperative. So Park is basically, I think she's on the way out, but I think this is going to be like the last thing that she's going to do. Is she's going to do it because they're so afraid of America pulling out of South Korea, and they think it might happen. I'd like to think that surely they're not that stupid, but we're going to find out. I mean, already with the advisors that they're appointing, they've got a climate change denying person who's looking like they're going to be heading up the EPA. They have a creationist, what's his face, Ben Carson. They've put in charge of setting up. He looks like he'll become the education secretary. A fucking creationist? Are you kidding me? I mean, the appointments are scary. So that is the US election. YouTube channels. Earlier this week, Eric's F6 channel was terminated for repeated violations of the terms of use or something like that. And fortunately, whatever it was that was taken down, it was undone pretty quickly, and his channel was put back to normal. Apparently, Eric, I've heard this third hand from a couple of people, but he doesn't know what it's about, and he's waiting to find out. And then, surprise, surprise, this morning, Victor's channel was terminated. Gimmeabreakman was terminated. It is now fully back up and running. I don't know whether this is being done by trolls or hacking, or whether it's a bug with YouTube, or what the story is with it. Again, Victor himself, he's trying to find out. They've restored it all for him. But in terms of what the cause was, I guess we're gonna get the story at some point. But no one knows at the moment. But yeah. So for that, I'm not all outraged with YouTube. I understand that YouTube has Well, they have these policies about taking down channels and so on, which they need to have for all sorts of reasons, for legal, basically for their own protection, to protect the entire site from lawsuits, as well as for safety, as well as, you know, for genuine, you know, people putting up abusive content, or if you're uploading, you know, videos of children being tortured, yeah, your channel should be taken down as quickly as possible. And they don't have 1 million people working in India, you know, watching each video and checking, you know. They don't have the manpower to process the stuff, you know, like on a human basis, so they do it automatically, and I guess you've got to lean towards caution. It is good that these things were apparently fixed within a short period of time, but I'm interested to hear myself actually what the cause of this was, and if it was a bug, I hope they fix it, and if it was a, you know, if this proves to be a case of, you know, abusive flagging or trolling that was able to do this, yeah, sure, YouTube's got to look at its systems, but I want to find out what the story was before we get into all of that. So yeah, I've been tweeting a lot tonight about the quake and just all the information about it, the tsunami warnings. It's been a bit freaky. So what else have we got here? Yeah, someone was talking about Domino's using drones in New Zealand to deliver pizza, and I gave my opinion of drones. I was having a slight Twitter argument tonight with someone about argument. It was a debate. It was an intellectual debate about the Electoral College and why I think Americans are just stuck with it. Oh, AirPods. This is actually my new butter. I love... Can I get this on camera? I guess I can't. I love my iPhone 7. It's a great phone. I love that. I love the Suka Apple Pay. I love all that sort of stuff. But see you later. Good night, the Sergeant Booker. I like all of that, but I don't like the fact that, you know, since we've lost these earphones, I like the fact that it's waterproof, and that's partly because they lost the earphones, but now I have to use my earphones as a direct plug into the lightning port, which means I can't charge and listen to stuff at the same time, and that becomes annoying quite often. And fine, I'll wear these stupid looking, you know, AirPods because it looks like a good solution. I actually quite like the idea of not having wires all the time. So yeah, end of October, I'm all ready to go and get these, and you know, they've just been delayed, and then they said during November, and then someone said last week within 1 week, and now they're saying might not be ready this year. And you know, I blame Trump. Why not? We've been blaming Obama for 8 years. I can blame Trump now. Talking a bit about the Electoral College here, and why is it that Puerto Ricans can't vote at all, right? Hey, good night, Andrea. What else have we got here? We've got there is a screen cap of Victor's channel being taken down. South Koreans, 260,000, while we're all freaking out about America, 260,000 South Koreans, probably one of the biggest. I mean, Anna says it was like 1 million. South Koreans protested last night against the president, trying to get her to resign. 5% approval rating, but for people below 30 years old, 0% approval rating at the moment for the president of Korea. Apparently she doesn't intend to quit, but you know, that's pretty tough to survive. I think she's going to pass that treaty that I was talking about, and she's going to resign right after that. But these are incredible protests that have been going on in Korea all week. Spoiled Americans now want to flee what they created. Basically Al Jazeera saying, speaking to someone from the Middle East, you know, mocking Middle Eastern refugees and so on. Suck it up, you rich privileged people. It was an interesting perspective. I thought I'd share that. There is Michael Kuchek advocating splitting America into 3 countries. Again, just a reminder that America still is not yet the most racist country in the world. Nigel Farage, the man who was responsible for the win of the Brexit vote, the success of that, the leader of the UK IP at the time, was the first UK politician to meet with Trump. Welcome to the new world, man. Isn't that freaky? Here is a real Adachi story. Adachi is the ghetto of Tokyo. Tokyo has 23 wards. Those wards, some of them are wealthy, some of them are not so wealthy. As a New Zealander, when I first came to Tokyo, hearing that one ward was a ghetto and one was wealthy, I would walk through them. I couldn't tell the difference. I mean, compared to New Zealand, you're talking about very subtle differences. But now I've lived here a long time, I do appreciate that actually, oh, this is ghetto, and oh, this is actually quite nice. I've lived here 20 years now. Adachi is the ghetto. It's where most of the taxi drivers in Tokyo come from. It's kind of the closest thing Tokyo has to Skid Row. It's nothing like Skid Row, but it is the wrong side of the tracks part of Tokyo. A man apparently, clearly must have murdered his girlfriend, and he decided to put her body in a car and drive her up to the police station, and to drop off the body. And there's this thing that police do in Japan. In order to maximize the detention time that they can interrogate someone, you've got like what is it? In Japan it's like 7 days. In most countries it's about 3 days. You can hold someone without charging them, without formally charging them, and you can interrogate the hell out of them, basically. And the whole idea is that in Western countries, if you detain someone and you interrogate them for more than 3 days, any confession that they give after that is probably going to be treated as coerced, that they'll give it just in order to get out of that situation. The stress becomes so great. In Japan, you can hold someone on a single charge for 7 days, which I understand can be extended up to 3 weeks. But what the police do is when they think they have someone on a murder rap, rather than charge them with murder, they charge them with illegal disposal of a body. And they keep them for the full 3 weeks, interrogating the hell out of them to get them to confess, so that they don't have to do all the actual, forensic work. And if they don't confess in that 3 weeks of continual interrogation, then they charge them with murder after they finish the charge with Tatsuji Yoshimura. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be a bully about Adachi, but am I right? They're the worst drivers in Tokyo as well. I avoid Adachi number plate taxis. I'm showing a slight discriminatory thing here. I know some good people in Adachi, and I don't mind going to Adachi myself. I take my son to Adachi to go and play in the parks. But it's known in Tokyo as having the highest percentage of welfare recipients, right? So anyway, back to the story. So police will charge someone first with illegal disposal of a body, and then they'll charge them with murder after that if they need to extend the interrogation time. I mean, they'll charge them with murder eventually anyway if they confess. So this guy actually delivers the body to the police station, and they charge him with illegal disposal of a body. I'm just thinking of all of it's ridiculous that the way that they use the illegal disposal of body crime to extend the detentions of these murder suspects to begin with, to basically increase the violation of their human rights. But the fact that they applied it here, I mean, if it's an illegal disposal of a body to take the body to a police station, I mean, how is it possible not to break that law? I mean, if you've murdered someone, right? So yes. Anyway, it's. I thought you could say he probably did about as hard as anyone could have tried to avoid being charged with illegal disposal of a body, but he still got charged, even though he actually took the body himself to a police station. This is awful. An 86-year-old person ran over two 30-year-olds and killed them. There's just so many old people now. This is why I want self-driving cars. Park's gonna go. A good idea for America. If Trump wants to actually register all Muslims in America, well, then everyone just declare themselves a Muslim. Although, yes, really hope that it doesn't come to that, of course. Don't hate the Vader, hate the game. 2016, proving to be a hell of a year. That was just a thought. Yes, the Western liberal world now is completely dependent upon Angela Merkel. I've given my opinion on that in the tweet above. God, I am starting to feel like the world is coming crashing to an end. Dentsu was raided, by the way, for overworking people to death back in 2010. Funny that. UNESCO, they've got a picture there. Those are the disputed islands, the Senkaku Islands, that China claims and Japan claims, and they're having this big argument about it. Japan submitted to the UNESCO, and I thought, holy shit, did Japan submit to UNESCO the disputed islands to try to get them UNESCO status? And the answer is no, actually. It's a bit of a provocative photo. Japan actually submitted Amami Oshima, big island, part of Kagoshima Prefecture, Tokuno Oshima, the northern part of Okinawa Island, and Iriomote. 4 islands that have nothing to do with any claims by China, and China opposed them because it is afraid that it might add the disputed islands to their submission to UNESCO. Japan is made up of like over 1,000 islands. It submitted 4 of them to UNESCO, and China is just opposing it because it's afraid that 4 islands, the Senkaku Islands that are not included in this might be added to it. It sounds to me like they're actually planning to claim these islands as well. I mean, seriously. And as I say here, it's like Japan, objecting to China registering Hainan Island or Hong Kong as UNESCO as being part of China. It's like Japan would say, no, you're not allowed to register Hainan because you might add the Diaoyutai Islands as well. It's ridiculous. But China did it because they're China. This is I give my opinion on this. If you need to be self-assured that America, that there are still countries more racist than America, yes, Australia. Congratulations, Australia. All of those refugees that are being processed on Manus Island and Nauru, PNG, Manus Island and Nauru, in camps which by all accounts are as bad or worse than like Guantanamo in Cuba. And these people, these are not the most dangerous terrorists in the world that were picked up from Afghanistan and put into Guantanamo. These are refugees. These are people who are fleeing Afghanistan and Iraq, and people fleeing Myanmar. People who've tried to get on boats to Australia, as many Australians have done. Not to mention the original Australia. I mean, everybody got to Australia by boat, but these people have been picked up, and the anti-refugee sentiment in Australia is so strong that they put these people into basically concentration camps in third-party countries where people have been experiencing rape and mutilation, and they don't have medical facilities on these little tropical, the tropical sounds nice, but they're not nice. This is Nauru is an island that's whose main export is bird shit, and Manus I don't know much about, but it's part of Papua New Guinea, and these people have been there for years. And remember, these are refugees. These are people escaping persecution. They're not actually like Guantanamo inmates, but they're in worse conditions, and that's what Australia has been doing. And America thinks this is so terrible that America has promised to take a certain number of those refugees itself for Australia. Like I say, I think it's like Nazi Germany and South Africa proudly announcing that South Africa will take some of Germany's Jews. It's insane. It actually makes America look a lot less racist than Australia. I mean, it's just crazy what Australia is doing with this. Watami, I didn't know this. TGI Fridays is a Watami company. So Watami, this guy, that's not him, but he runs a company, a bunch of izakaya, which was famous for. He worked a shop manager to death, and then boasted about how he makes people work the hardest, and he refused to pay compensation to the family. Real asshole, and took them to court to not pay compensation, fought against it. And the internet backlash against this guy for not only like being the head of a black company, a company that works people to death, but the fact he also basically fought the family against compensating them for working their daughter to death, led to such an internet backlash that he was basically boycotted by everybody. So he changed the names of all of his companies, and now for the first time in years they are starting to generate a profit again. And it's because they don't use the Watami label anymore. But if you need a reminder as to what companies he runs, here's a list of them. And apparently, I didn't know this, TGI Fridays is on the list of companies that supposedly, this is, the internet, so you can verify this for yourself. I know that Gohan and Wamin and those places are all chains run by Watami. TGI Fridays is kind of a shock, but there you go. I would not support any company that he had any hand in owning or running. He's a bad person. My personal opinion, but it's pretty ugly stuff there. Did the internet elect the president? The casino law is going to go through next week. Man, what else has been here from the news? We are coming up on time, but I'm just going to go through and see if there's anything else worth really talking about from this week. I've tweeted about free fonts, so go check that good stuff out. Now they're using neural nets to facilitate online machine translation, and it is causing extreme improvements in quality, which is kind of great and scary in some ways. What else we got here? We've got shoes that don't slip on ice. Always good to know. I was watching a rugby game yesterday. There was some good stuff on earlier this week, which I was tweeting about. Mimei made 300,000 subs. Mimei, she's a Kiwi, she's awesome. She's married to PDR, who's also awesome. Slippers are the next evolution of sneakers. Sounds good. I'm hoping that bathrobes are also going to be the next evolution of business suits. Charlie Brown AU, well, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? I did not hear the rumor about setting up retail stores and factories. I have heard, I'm not sure, was it announced somewhere that I think they are going to be like opening up online shopping there anyway. But yeah, I think it's needed. I hope Australia gets an internet so that people can access it. I guess that's why they would host online stores. Oh, this was funny. I gotta share this one to you. So, Yoshiro Mori, the least popular prime minister in Japan in the entire post-war period, he got down to 9% popularity. The current Korean president's on 5%. She's actually half as popular as Yoshiro Mori was, which to me is just, I can't even comprehend how someone could be that unpopular. He is the head of the Japan Olympic Committee, setting up for the Tokyo Olympics. Because they've been overspending and going crazy, the new, get tough, quite populist governor of Tokyo, Koike, she said, we're taking over the spending committee for the Tokyo Olympics because we don't like how they're running things, and we submitted 97.5% of the funds. We provided a $57 million loan to get them set up, or they provided the funding, 97.5% of the total $55 million to set up the committee for running the organization of Tokyo. So she said, basically, because it's been running out of control, she wants the Tokyo government to have direct oversight and control of this committee. To which the head of the Japan Olympic Committee said, well, now we've got sponsors, we can just pay you back the money because, you know, we don't have to do what you tell us. And so he said, we'll pay back the money. And then the when she said, well, she demanded control of this committee because they paid for it, and he said, well, we'll just give you back the money then. And she said, well, it's kind of, so the money served its purpose, it's all up and running, we'll take the money back, thank you. That's kind of funny, she'll take the money back, but geez, just a lot of very stupid people. What else have we got here? This is not funny. This is just a normal, real news story, actually, and it's extremely depressing. And this is why I don't want to live in America, because I'd be afraid of getting sick if I was in America. Hey, so Raz, I would love to get Miss Hanake on to Tonafe. Actually, I've never. Here we go. I follow her and I see you're in the comments now. I've never really connected with her before. Miss Hanake, message me on Facebook and we might get you onto an Oyajis sometime. Next week, if we can, we want to get Eric Surf 6. We want to figure out what's happening with that. There's a few people sort of in the pipeline, but yeah, hey, why not? Why not? Always good to get some suggestions there. Yeah, America might not be in the TPP, which is fine. And there's been a lot of news this week, but I'm going to go back to checking the earthquake news and whatnot. Geez, hoping we are not as screwed as it looks like we are. Supermoon over Tokyo, isn't that nice? I'm going to leave it there. So yes, it's been a crazy week. I think I covered all the big subjects. I hope you enjoyed it. I did not get to actually, yes, and Thai, which I'm glad to hear, but holy shit. Right. I mean, it's just insane in the first place that the Americans even play politics with that. But that is what it is, and I hope Americans sort that stuff out for themselves. It's been a good week. Has it? No, it has been a bad week. What am I saying? Oh my god, I lost my mind there for a second. It's not been a good week. It's been a bad week, but butter. I had butter this week, so it's maybe it's been okay. I will see you all next week. We'll be back on 2.5 Oyajis. I'll keep you posted on what's been happening with New Zealand, on what's happening with Japan, on what's happening with YouTube, and all that good stuff. And if you do want to come and chill with me, remember, November 27, check my Facebook events page. On November 27, there is a YouTube Creator Day. Now I will be hosting in English. If you have between 1 and 50,000 subscribers, you can apply. Even if you don't have that many, you can try applying, and if there are enough seats, you might get lucky. So apply anyway. And I didn't even mention Harambe, but frankly, Harambe would totally fit into this week if that had happened. Radri, you got a podcast? Okay, everyone check out Radri's new podcast. It's been a terrible week. It's been a terrible week. Let's hope we have a better week. Trump week is over. That is how we'll end the show. Trump week is over. Let's have a good week this week, and I will see you next week. Have a good week, everybody. Take care. Good night. Peace. Boom. He said before going to turn off the video, but it's slow at the moment. And there we go. 59:35. Stop streaming. Am I sure I want to stop? Yes, I'm sure I want to stop. Good night.